Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rotten Tomatoes After Show. My name is Mark Ellis, and this is maybe my most anticipated after show, I guess, of all time, because we get to talk about Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, the epic conclusion to this saga that has lasted for longer than I have on this Earth and in many galaxies far, far away. I have a great panel joining me here. Before we get to them, I want to let everybody out there know this is a spoiler-heavy show. So we've all seen the movie. We hope you have as well. You have been warned. We're talking about everything in this movie. And speaking of that, the movie currently stands at 58% on the Tomatometer, and that is with 249 reviews coming in as of this taping. So maybe it's surprising it's not fresh. We're going to get into all that stuff right now. This actually makes it currently the second lowest Star Wars saga film on the Tomatometer. The Phantom Menace is 53%. If you're keeping
there you go. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
So now let's welcome our incredible panel here to talk all things Star Wars. Maude Garrett is here.
Hi. Yeah, thank you. May the force be with everyone.
Yes.
R.I.P. me in the comments. Woo!
Joelle Monique.
Hi. It's a sad and weird day for Star Wars fans, but I'm excited to get into it.
And last but certainly not least, Scott, movie release date Mantz.
I'm just going to cross the streams here and say, live long, prosper, and may the force be with you.
There we go. We got some Star Trek flavor there, and why not? Because J.J. Abrams has done both franchises as well. I want to get y'all's take on the movie, whether y'all think it's fresh or rotten. The critics' consensus right now on Rotten Tomatoes, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker suffers from a frustrating lack of imagination, but concludes this beloved saga with fan-focused devotion. Scott Mantz, you hear that? What is your consensus? Is this movie fresh or rotten?
I think it's very fresh. I love the hell out of it. I was extremely entertained while I was watching the film twice. You know, first one was at the premiere, so of course that was exciting. Watching it again with, you know, just a clearer head of these three movies in this new trilogy, I'm going to say Rise of Skywalker was my favorite of the three.
Okay.
It was my favorite of the three. I was very, very satisfied, and it is fresh.
I want to talk about the connectivity with this new trilogy. We'll get into that in a little bit. Joelle Monique, fresh or rotten for you?
Oh, okay. So, because we only have two options and I don't consider it fresh, I have to say rotten. That's a weak way of getting at it. I'm sorry. But that's where I'm at. I don't appreciate the shelving of basically every major POC character. I thought some of the conclusions we reached were similar conclusions we've reached not from the original trilogy, and if we're bringing balance, we should be trying to approach a new way to bring balance to the Force, so I thought that was kind of weird. I will say that it's my second most favorite beautiful Star Wars movie after Rogue One. Some of these shots are just like out of control. They're just breathtakingly gorgeous, but you have to have a story. Things have to happen, and it's a lot of weak sauce for me. I love fandom. I love showing the fans appreciation and giving us what we want, but you have to back that up with a solid story, and that did not happen in this movie.
So we got a fresh, we got a rotten, and don't worry about your rotten, because there's actually a book called Rotten Movies We Love that you can still celebrate movies that are not considered fresh. Maude Garrett, fresh or rotten?
I have been waving storms of abuse for having this opinion, and for that I'm not sorry at all, because I'm sticking to it. This movie, to me, was fresh. J.J. Abrams had such a gargantuan job ahead of him. He's not only completing the trilogy, which I don't think we should ever call this a trilogy, because it was not working together at all, but he was finishing a saga that lasted over 40 years, and I think that to do that he had to hit a lot of strokes. For me, I feel like I strapped in for a ride and I was entertained throughout the entire thing. There was so much going on, but I felt the pacing was amazing, and I was like just enraptured in what was going on, and by the end, same thing. I was like, I feel satisfied, and it was just like a bit of a hug, had a bit of a cry, and now I'm just like, yeah, cool. He did the best with what he had, I guess.
I was witness to that cry, by the way.
Yeah,
I was witness to that cry. Yeah. I was.
What do you think?
Yay,
I was
big
like,
hug.
I needed that. I needed that.
I mean, that's the thing with Star Wars, is that because, I mean, it's been in my life since before I was born, and so it's something that I get very emotional whenever I approach one of these, and then when I'm able to separate myself from the fact that this is just in my family like the Force is, I look at this movie and I say, this is fresh for me too, simply because I felt the spirit of the classic trilogy. I loved how fast the movie moved. I loved that we took some some chances with mythology. I think that the connective tissue in bringing this entire saga to its epic conclusion was worthwhile. And again, I go back to the word fun. I had such a great time watching this movie, and I think it's a very rewatchable movie for that purpose. And this is a luxury that we get as Star Wars fans. You know, we get to see the movie early, and we're very privileged to do that.
Yes.
And then we have to keep our thoughts very succinct, and we can't give away any spoilers. And now we just get to let all of the kittens out of the bag. So let's get right into these huge spoilers, these huge reveals. I mean, Rey is a Palpatine.
Rey is a Palpatine.
Now, she dubs herself a Skywalker at the end, but her grandpappy is Emperor Palpatine. Was that the biggest surprise of the movie to you, Maude? What do you think of all this?
For starters, it was revealed really quite soon, and I feel like, you know, The Force Awakens, we had the mystery box. It was illusion. It was like, what does it all mean? And then, of course, with The Last Jedi, it was like, it means nothing. Let's go existential. Let the past die. And it was like, no, the past is important. But I liked that I got answers really, really quickly. There was no more guessing. It was just like, boom, she's Palpatine. Boom, this is why she's so angry. She's finally got her identity, and she's just sort of like filled with this, I guess, you know, it's always the chosen one and destiny happening here, but that rage that she was fueling, which then added so much more weight behind the relationship with Kylo/Ben and their dynamic, which was in The Last Jedi, how they spoke and that connectivity that they had. And I loved that JJ allowed that to grow further in this movie, so that was cool.
And when we see Rey really realize her full Palpatine abilities, Joelle, and Kylo's look, I mean, because, look, even if you're like me and you try to avoid as much speculation as possible, we all knew that there were, Rey could be related to Palpatine. And so seeing how early the movie hints at that very overtly, and then we see her full power, I thought that was a pretty stellar part of the movie, in my opinion.
Seeing Rey use her power was amazing. Like, this was our first female Jedi in a Star Wars movie. She is way more powerful than most of the Jedi we've seen. That's super cool. Palpatine being her grandpa. When did Palpatine have a family? Was it the mother or the father that was her parent? And if we're looking like really intently at like Jedi Sith lore, like, the rule of two is now just one. All of the Sith are going to live in just one person. Is that what's been happening the whole time? It's just no Sith leader. What?
But hang on.
Chaos. It makes no sense, guys.
Okay, now, first of all, you said in your opening remark how you didn't think that there was a story here. If anything, I feel like The Rise of Skywalker has maybe too much story, because you can feel J.J. Abrams returning as director after The Force Awakens. He did a major course correction. He's trying to bring it back. And yeah, I did feel the strain in that sense, but I still enjoy the film. As for Rey being a Palpatine, when The Empire Strikes Back came out in May of 1980, and by the way, okay, y'all are saying, oh, you know, Star Wars has been around since you were born. I was 7 years old when I saw Star Wars on the opening weekend, May 25th, 1977, at the Eric Fairless Hills, right outside Philadelphia. I'm sure the hair is a dead giveaway, okay, yes. But I loved how The Rise of Skywalker, it felt like a throwback. Certainly, plot points felt like a throwback to the best of The Empire Strikes Back and the best of Return of the Jedi. And the reveal with Rey being a Palpatine, while not nearly as shocking as Luke, I am your father, or no, I am your father, I mean, nothing will ever top that. Yeah. In movie history, nothing will ever top that except maybe the end of Planet of the Apes. But that reveal, I didn't see it coming, because all this time I'm thinking, so is Rey Luke's daughter? I mean, is she Leia's daughter? Like, that's where I was going.
It's interesting
that
you
reveal
say that
was
because
good.
Because I was like, when they hinted at Rey being a Palpatine so early in the movie, I'm thinking, JJ, I know what you're doing right now. You're teasing us all, and then she's actually going to be related to Obi-Wan or somebody else. And nope, totally wrong. She's actually his grandpappy. And when you get into the lore, or she's his granddaughter, I should say, when you get into the lore that we just learned about the Sith, that Palpatine was able to, you know, meet a nice young lady and knock some boots one night in the midst of all of his evil. I just don't want to know what he sounds like. But after all of this procreation madness, and then you also have like this Sith zombie that we're keeping alive and all these Sith followers and all these things, just him to be able to exist after death, a lot of that stuff, I go back to that scene in Revenge of the Sith where he's talking to Anakin about, you know, the abilities that are unnatural, but also Darth Plagueis the Wise, and how he's looking at doing some experimentation with being able to do stuff after death or in death or prevent death from happening. And so if that's Palpatine then, how much more did he get into that and find ways to be able to do all of this stuff that we saw in Rise of Skywalker?
Okay, like first of all, you call him Grandpappy. I'm going to call him Grandpalpy. Let's just call him Grandpappy.
I like that.
It's gonna go. Being Sidious.
But you know what? Okay, so wait, Joelle, you mentioned how. Like, where did he have time to have a family and all this stuff? You know, when The Empire Strikes Back came out, we found out that Vader was Luke's father. You know, at that time, and for many, many, many years, you're like, when did Vader, how the heck could he have had, like, a family? Of course, then George Lucas made the prequels, and boy, did we find out. Not saying that we should have another series of films about Palpatine. I'm not suggesting that at all.
That's my point. Is like we have an entire canon full of stories, including about Palpatine, but this is never hinted at. And to your point about like this, it takes us back to the, like, as a fan of Star Wars, I don't want to be reminded of another film again. Like, I don't think that going backwards helps improve the story or shock us. I wanted that shock. I wanted to be surprised.
But you're not going backwards. You're wrapping it up, and you're bookending things. Like, I don't know, did you notice that when the reveal happened with Rey being a Palpatine, and she was totally freaked out, did you notice that she was backing up, like she was going to throw herself off the ledge? Like she was backing up, like she was going to do what Luke did when he found out that Vader was his father, and he just sacrificed himself. Yes. But then the Falcon was right there, and she jumped right on it, and she was saved. But that moment was a throwback to The Empire Strikes Back, just like the whole confrontation with Palpatine was a throwback to Jedi.
I was thinking like in Back to the Future 2 when Marty backs off. Well, you have the last word on.
With this whole, it doesn't make sense. Like, who is Palpatine and Sidious, and how has this been going on for? He has always been the galaxy's puppet master. He has, I think that we sort of forget that he controlled Vader. Like, Vader was his protege. Mm-hmm. And this whole time, he's always 3 steps ahead, and he's playing everyone all the time. So to think that he was doing it sort of like after death, that was already established in Revenge of the Sith. So he knows that was his attitude towards it all. For me, it absolutely made sense that Sidious was still there behind the scenes working it all, because he is basically, if the Empire exists, it's because of him.
It's something that I can buy. And look, now, do I think that at the start of The Force Awakens, when JJ sat down to create that film, was he thinking, oh, the last one we're going to have Palpatine? I do not. No. But I also think that I can understand both either praises or critiques, where it does feel like we're going back and we're using a character that we already had run his course. But in using that old character, I do like a lot of the new mythology that we did introduce to Star Wars that we can build upon with all these different things that Sith are able to do even after they perish. At least we think they perish. Somebody who did actually perish in the movie is Ben. Yeah, I said Ben. Didn't say Kylo Ren. Well, Kylo Ren died too, I guess. They both made it by the end. But what a beautiful way to redeem a character that I did not think was redeemable. After I saw him put his laser sword into Han Solo, I was like, okay, the one thing that this trilogy cannot do is redeem this guy. I found myself buying into his redemption because Leia is putting herself into him and putting all the good that she has left, and that's going to take her life. And then we get to see this vision of Han Solo talking to his son, and that was the one way that I was like, okay, Kylo, you can come on back and be Ben again. Joelle, how did you take that?
Yeah, maybe one of the more emotional parts. Father-son stuff always, it chokes me up a little bit.
The touching of the face.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh my God, when Han Solo came on the screen, I was like, whoa! That's when I love being a fan. Go ahead.
Yeah, the use of the dialogue that he used to kill his father being used at the same time to be like, I don't know if I can do this, which means he's got to throw his saber away. There's a lot of really beautiful moments in that interaction. I vocally on this channel was like, I don't want him to be redeemed. Let's again, just change up the story a little bit. But it was maybe my favorite part of this movie was the redemption story, the whole life saving. I'm not sure if I liked how necessarily the end part of them, switching life forces back and forth, was filmed. The rocking was kind of weird. There were laughs in my theater, but I did enjoy the fact that in her moment of anger, she chose to heal, and that to me is the first sign of oh, this girl's on the path to really be a Jedi.
But when you have that moment of redemption, what's the difference between that and the moment of redemption that Vader shows in Return of the Jedi?
Vader gets redemption. This is what we're talking about. Two totally different
types.
Absolutely.
He makes the choice.
The redemption is earned.
I don't feel like Darth Vader got redeemed either, for what it's worth, because Darth Vader killed a lot of people.
Well,
yeah.
And Kylo was around for it.
But when the Jedi are all talking at the end, it's Anakin.
I know.
When they also put him in the originals, and they just let me CGI original Anakin in there. It's totally fine. He's a Force ghost now. Yeah, I think redemption is a process, and so to get it right at the end never feels satisfactory to me. And this is just across all movies, not specifically Star Wars, but just if you're being redeemed right at the end by being like, I'm sorry, I don't do much for me.
I think I also feel like Ben was young enough, and that redemption scene did hold some weight for me. But again, seeing just having the surprise. I mean, you talk about a spoiler in a movie. Seeing Han Solo show up, that really
great.
meant a lot to me. And having him say the iconic line, "I know." I didn't even register that he said it until like 30 seconds. I was like, oh, that's
no, straight away I was like, boosh.
That moment was fan service to the extreme, but I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I loved it. You know, the thing about the evolution of the character of Ben, of Kylo Ren, is I love the arc, okay? This new trilogy is wildly uneven. Like you said, and I think you said, we were talking before camera, that not a whole lot of thought went into the arc of the trilogy when they wanted to make The Force Awakens in 2015. They didn't have it mapped out, and that was something also that on Rotten Tomatoes, Dan Merrill from Screen Junkies also said, like, you could tell that they really didn't have a clear plan for this trilogy when they started out.
And that has harmed them and their audience completely and irreparably.
But I still love the film. I still love that moment, and there are things that we learned about the Force that we didn't see before, like with Rey healing that alien's wound, and then her doing the same for Ben.
The Force healing, I thought worked, and
exchange.
But then you also had the kiss. I mean, a lot of people have been,
oh, the kiss!
What do we think about this smooch, Mom?
So quite vocally, I haven't enjoyed Kylo Ren as an antagonist throughout this series. When you put him up against Vader, which is what he's essentially doing, Vader had such gravitas, which he never had. And I will never forget, every single time I saw Force Awakens in cinemas, when he took his helmet off, everyone laughed. And it breaks my heart when people laugh at him for the wrong reason. But there's a reason behind it. This is the first movie I liked Kylo Ren in.
Yep,
I think that Adam Driver had so much more to do than be an angry tantrum-throwing brat. And just seeing him as an actor really flex, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to just, you know what,
That
credit where credit's due.
Temple, I was like, oh, he's coming. Like, he was ready. Like, got me really hyped.
Even when the movie started and he's going on a rampage, then he goes in. I mean, just his walk, it felt like I was walking with him, and I'm walking faster than I thought I would walk this early in the movie. And I'm like, we are really going to a lot of places here. And we did say goodbye to the last of the classic big three, Leia, as she saved her son in a way. Let's talk about the emotions behind that goodbye to Leia. It wrecked me twice. It wrecked me when she's laying down and R2 leans forward, and I'm like, oh God. And then Chewie.
See you later.
Wait, hang on. First of all, Carrie Fisher was in this movie a whole lot more than I expected her to be.
Yes.
Great
I
point.
thought she maybe had like a scene that they used maybe that when they were filming Last Jedi or Force Awakens that they just didn't use, and they're just going to sort of like make a scene around it. But she was in the movie a whole lot more than I expected. And I loved the way that it all paid off. You know, it was extremely emotional. Not only her death scene, not only, like you said, with R2 leaning in, because, I mean, who doesn't love R2?
He didn't
And
get
of
enough
course,
screen
Chewie.
time.
No, he did not. But also, I loved the scene. It's a quick flashback scene that lasted maybe 30 seconds when you see Luke training Leia.
How cool was that?
How cool was? Give it up, mister. That was awesome.
Joelle, no?
Wait, come on. Wait. Let me just finish my thought. I mean, that scene, I thought, now there's a movie. Okay, if you can do a film like Gemini Man, where you have this CGI version of young Will Smith, how great would it be to have maybe like a webisode of young Luke training young Leia?
So apparently that's how the movie was supposed to start. Now this is all speculation, and I don't have much weight behind it, but I did hear that it was originally going to be a scene, two people training with helmets on, back and forth, someone knocks the other to the ground, and you can see them lose out in anger a little bit, and it was Leia on Luke, and she was like, okay, if I keep training, I think I'm going to tap into some darkness here.
Well, I do. That's why I like her having a lightsaber too, because I do consider her to be a Jedi. I mean, that's how I look at it, and I like that her political answer for why she's not training anymore is because I feel like I can do more as a politician. But now it's explained. She had that vision of things going really bad, and she's like, take this lightsaber, get it the hell away from me, give it to somebody who can use it better than I can because I'm scared of my own power.
Can I actually add to that as well, which I think is so great, because we're obviously introducing people being force sensitive, and Finn is one of them, and he's starting to be able to connect with other people, and he's like, oh my gosh, this is something that I've got. He's a general. He has a very, very similar storyline to Leia in the sense where he had a path in front of him and it was forked. He could go down the line of force training and become potentially a Jedi, or he could be a schematic officer and do what Leia did, and he's taken up her stead. And I thought that was really cool.
Leia as a Jedi does not work for me. It doesn't. I'm sorry. Here's the thing. I feel like Leia, so grounded is she in? She's been on the battlefield like 17. Like, I feel like she would find a different way to use her force powers. We've had the expanded universe. And I hate to keep going to it, but that's where my fandom originates from. It's from the expanded universe.
You see, kids, back in the Dark Ages, we didn't have new Star Wars movies to debate about. We had to read
books. To read books. We had to go into the animated shows when those came out and blessed us, and fixed Clone Wars. Like, there's so many great Force Bendu from Rebels. I think she would have found a way to quietly use her force powers, and to say that she would have been too tempted by the dark side, for me, like, Leia?
Yeah,
our golden queen couldn't have handled it. There's a lot that doesn't work for me. Her lightsaber feels like a cash grab, and when you bury it at the end, it doesn't feel... That doesn't feel like Leia to me. I don't have that resonance with her lightsaber as being a part of who she is. And so it doesn't work for me in the same way that Finn being force sensitive and then not ever getting to outwardly address it really bummed me out. I was like, so we have like the first black guy other than Mace Windu to be on the big screen with, and it's just a feeling.
Well, then let's move into that new big three that we're talking about with Finn, because Finn and Poe and Rey and their moments, or maybe lack thereof. What I liked about what this movie was doing is that it did get to unite them for the most part. They get splintered off from time to time, but I liked seeing the big three of them on screen together, maybe at the sacrifice of some of their individual storylines.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I really loved about The Rise of Skywalker was seeing the three of them together. Sure. I would like to have seen Rose be a part of that, because she certainly deserved to be, Kelly Marie Tran, but to see Oscar Isaac, John Boyega, and Daisy Ridley together was very, very rewarding, because I thought the chemistry between the three of them was terrific.
And we're seeing them in a new light. I mean, the fact that Poe and Rey were like bickering, like that was sort of new to see on screen. And you're like, these guys are getting better. And I will say, with The Last Jedi, one of its faults was the fact that they split Rey and Finn up the whole movie, because these two genuinely love each other in real life. Their chemistry is amazing. So to see them just be separated the whole time, they actually confessed in an interview that I had with them that was the hardest part about that second movie for them, that they weren't in scenes together. So I was like, get them together. Really too.
Like this movie, a lot of the jokes in this movie I thought landed.
I did
and
too.
a lot of it is because of the interaction of the big three, Finn, Poe, Rey, and then Joelle, you talk about Rey's arc. Did you find that to be satisfying, that where she started from Force Awakens as the scavenger, and then she ends up briefly being a Palpatine before being like, nah, let's change the name on my ID to Skywalker?
Here's what I really liked about Rey's journey. I thought the way that she was first confronted by her friends to be like, listen, this alone business is not, to me, when Star Wars is best is when we're in a group fighting together. And that's across all platforms. And so I love that they were like, where are you going? Like, no, we're coming we're getting on the ship, we're going to fight together. All of that really works for me. I love that she has a yellow saber at the end.
Yes.
Like, if you don't know, the knights who guard the Jedi temples had yellow sabers. They are meant to represent knowledge and basically Jedis who are more like knowledge seekers than fighters. And it's so beautiful to be like, listen, she's choosing, she doesn't need to fight no more. Hopefully she's brought balance to the universe and we're in a good place, and so she can go off from that. All of that really worked for me. I've already talked about Palpatine, so we don't have to go into how I feel about her.
And just to be fair, I think that yellow gold saber that Rey has, I think that's selling more lightsabers than Leia as well. I think that's the money-making lightsaber for me, and that's one I'm buying.
I loved Rey's journey, and I got to tell you, I thought Daisy Ridley's performance in Rise of Skywalker was superb. I thought she crushed it. I thought she just gave such a satisfying third act to the development of her character. You know, it's such a big, massive production like a Star Wars film, so many characters and visual effects and all that stuff, that her performance is She is the Luke Skywalker of this trilogy. You know, she is the center. She is the I guess the one sort of bolt that holds the whole machine together. Daisy Ridley was just phenomenal. I thought she was terrific in this movie.
To go a little bit more on that, I feel like the fight scenes, obviously Ben or Kylo and Rey keep fighting together because there's a lot of sexual chemistry and tension there. But also they're really angry, and she's just fueled by anger because, you know, she's got some of the dark side in her. But what I really loved, and this is The Last Jedi and in this movie as well, when they stop fighting each other and they team up together. And those lightsaber sequences that you have there, fantastic. What I really loved as well, there's so much Mary Sue talk with Rey, which I hope we can put to bed already. But I mean, I like the opposite. When they're completely overpowered and when they're fighting over that ship and they're using the Force together, I'm like, bring on all the Force powers, bring on everything. When she used her Jedi mind tricks, I was like, yes, we needed more of that. I want to see these two. I wanted to see Kylo and Rey so overpowered because that's what Dragon Ball Z is like to a T. Two really, really powerful, strong people fighting.
So Vegeta and Goku, and I'm proud to say I know who they are.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite scene in The Last Jedi was when Rey and Kylo or Ben teamed up. That was the best. That was the best scene.
So good.
Best.
So, Scott, as you brought up before, that Star Wars is celebrated not just for our big three, for our core. These are the people that are going to be the stars of the movie. It's all these great supporting characters, and we got so many of them in Rise of Skywalker. We got to see old faces return. We got to introduce some new characters. Who did you like? Who did you want to see more from? Who got sidelined to you?
Well, I definitely think that Rose got sidelined. I thought, you know, Keller Marie Tran, she was a big heart of The Last Jedi, and they should just, for her to just sort of stay behind.
Her dialogue seemed a bit flat, right?
It seemed contrived.
Because she didn't have anything to do or say.
Yeah.
Even though she was staying with Leia and she could have been planning. I'm sorry.
She should have been. It should have been a quartet, not a trio. She should have been on that ride. I don't know why she wasn't, and for her to stay behind like that.
She wasn't in The Force Awakens.
That was the most glaring one to me, is that Finn and Rose seemed to be building something at the end of The Last Jedi, and that now they're just kind of patting each other on the back.
That disappointed
me.
Who does Finn like? I thought he was in love with Poe at one stage, and it's like, well, they are not gay, and it was very known here.
No, here's a woman to make sure there's no gay things happening here.
Finn and Rey loved each other, and that's what he wanted to confess, because that's what you do when you think you're going to die. You confess your feelings to the one that you love.
When you're in space quicksand, you tell somebody how you feel.
Who does he like?
A character that I thought did not, I forget the character's name, but after his Oscar-nominated performance in Can You Ever Forgive Me, Richard E. Grant, I thought he was miscast. I love Richard E. Grant.
I was thinking he was the spy until we find out that Donald Gleason's the spy. That was a fun little reveal. We didn't need to put a lot of weight behind it. We didn't need Hux running around and joining the resistance, but it was just kind of fun. And I like that he's the spy, but he's like, I don't care about you. I just really hate this other guy. I hate my coworker, so I'm helping you.
And read into that comment. I don't want you to win. I just don't want Kylo Ren. I don't want you to. I just don't want Kylo Ren to win.
Yeah.
Read into that what you will. Read into that.
I'm reading.
What you will. Okay.
I'm reading. Some of your favorite supporting characters. Who shone, who did not get the chance to shine that you would have liked.
Jana's one scene where she meets Finn and they're discovering their past was so electric that I instantly needed more and then did not get enough.
That's what I hope they're setting up at the end with Lando talking to her. So when Lando says, let's find out who you are, I'm like, I think he's being a good guy. It might just be Lando being Lando.
That's such a problem. I was like, it's okay, please don't be her dad because that's racist. You can't have the two black people in there be related. Let's not do that. Then I was like, is he going to hit on her? That's a Lando thing to do.
That's a Lando thing to do.
It's weird because there's a huge age gap. And then I was like, are you a genealogist? Like, how are you going to find out who her people are?
He knows people, clearly.
Well, he is connected throughout the universe. Maybe. I could have used a lot more Lando. I feel like Lando is very much just sort of giving, like...
and yet he got MVP for me.
He only has dialogue lines. I want him to fight or something.
That's maybe my favorite part to rewatch with the fans when I go to my many screenings of this movie that are yet to come is the scene where Poe's given up all hope and he's turned into Maverick at the end of Top Gun, where he's just kind of in a dead spin and he just can't get it together. And then all of a sudden we hear that classic score, and it's a little perfect. It's a little convenient. The movie's not perfect, but that scene of Lando showing up and just having all these ships fly, Lando has a deep space Rolodex.
I feel like the worst Debbie Downer right now, but how did you steal the endings of both Captain Marvel and Endgame and just put them at the end of a Star Wars to get the Rise sequence that is straight from Captain Marvel, including memory stacking, to here's all of our heroes at one point, including all of the Force Ghosts. It was a lot. I still think my biggest problem with this version of Star Wars, and I'm working out the whole trilogy, is the lack of the ability to surprise me. I think what made the original Star Wars trilogy so successful was every time you're like, how are they doing this? How do they do that opening shot? How that scroll? I've never seen anything like that. Oh my gosh, he's Luke's father.
Leia
they're twins.
saving Han.
So many. Oh my gosh, when she removes her mask, you're like, what is happening? And you get so few of those moments across all three movies. It's hard to be
I think we were more innocent back then too. I think we were all just babes in the woods, just like, look at these movies and like look at all this. And now we just live in a culture where everything is just so broken down when a movie's being filmed. When it's like, oh look, there's a cover over a spaceship. What does that mean? And we just don't live in a world where you can just kind of sit back and be surprised.
Really quick, Damon Lindelof made a really good point. He's he did Watchmen recently. He was a showrunner on that, and he said you can no longer surprise people in a whodunit because the internet will be too far ahead of you. Like we know the science, we know how to break it down, and we're gonna get there. He's like, you have to try to understand why they have to be guessing why are they doing that. And I feel like more of that maybe would have bolstered Star Wars for me. This particular why is Rey doing the things she's doing, as opposed to she's just on a very straight line mission, and who is she? And every major fan theory is something we've already seen predicted on the internet in a bold way.
And that's a tough way to be a fan, is just to ingest all the stuff and then go in and try to shed all those expectations right before the movie starts. One of my favorite things about Star Wars has been how, since the movie came out back in '77, when Scott was a very, very tiny child, is that they used the droids to sell these movies. And I thought C-3PO and R2-D2, and now the BB-8 and Dio, I thought they were so good. I thought they were hilarious. I thought they had great moments. Babu Frick, that's going to be under a lot of Christmas trees.
I was waiting for you to ask me who my favorite character was, and it's Babu Frick completely. That scene is the most pure thing I've ever seen. I want him to be my little grandfather that fixes things the whole time. Such subtle but beautiful humor. Oh, that whole thing was absolutely perfect.
And I do like Babu. I like Zori as well. Just in her very limited screen time, I thought her and Poe had something really special on screen. And again, that's like the John Orlando thing, where it's like that's a novelization. Maybe I won't read it, but I'll listen to it on an audiobook, Scott.
The thing is, I've had some more time to process and stew in this and really think about. So we have Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, or as I've sort of been thinking about it, Star Wars Endgame. So you have this movie that closes out a 9-chapter saga, or 11 if you include Solo and Rogue One, which I loved. And then you have, look at Avengers Endgame, which closed out a 22-film saga. Now, comparing apples to apples in terms of last movies, I think that Avengers Endgame is a much better made film and does a much better job of closing everything out. I loved Avengers Endgame.
It was a coherent story.
The Star Wars, the saga as we now have come to know it, it's been a roller coaster. Yeah. There have been highs, there have been lows. And that's been a great topic to debate about. And I feel like, J.J. Abrams, when he did, okay, just go with me on this. When he did the first Star Trek movie in 2009 and he set everything up, that was his Force Awakens, the way he set up this new trilogy. When he did Star Trek Into Darkness, he tried so hard to throw everything into Star Trek Into Darkness, including the kitchen sink, and he threw so much Star Trek fan service into that film that it was a detriment to the movie. But overall, I liked Star Trek Into Darkness. And overall, I had the same sort of issues with The Rise of Skywalker. I thought he tried too hard to please the fans, and it does fall back on canon a little too much. But I love that stuff. And just like I loved Star Trek Into Darkness, flaws and all, I love The Rise of Skywalker, flaws and all.
Let me ask y'all, because we do want to talk about the elephant in the room as far as the connectivity. I've heard a lot of people who I respect say that they feel like this movie was just, it kind of trying on purpose to refute a lot of what The Last Jedi did. I can see through that lens. But I do not believe that a lot of these scenes that people are saying, like when Luke catches the lightsaber in this one and he says the Jedi never throws his weapon away.
100% that was a dig.
I do not see that as a dig, and here's why. It's because if Luke had thrown his lightsaber away at the end of The Last Jedi, that's a dig. He throws it away at the beginning of The Last Jedi, then Luke goes on this one last emotional, spiritual journey where he progresses as a person, and so by the end of The Last Jedi, he is no longer the same grizzled old hermit who throws a lightsaber away.
He even said, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
If Ghost can say they were wrong, then we can all admit that we're wrong sometimes too.
I'll say this, I I'm uncomfortable with people putting thoughts or words into either of the directors' mouths
Here,
and
here.
saying like, "Oh, this for sure was a dig." Now, I can tell you as a fan, I was like, "Oh, really?" It felt like a dig. But I didn't see destroying Kylo Ren's mask in The Last Jedi as a dig, but some people took it that way.
Well, see, the line of dialogue that was very, very clear to me was "Let the past die," and I said it a few times.
Well,
I was
and
like,
then Ryan's quote popping up very recently about, fan service is not good for fandom.
That was out of context a little bit, though, in that interview. So
Sure, he may not be saying it specifically about Star Wars.
I just want to clear that. Yeah, I don't think he was saying that about JJ
That's totally
in
fair.
particular,
No.
but
But I do think
he was saying that he wanted to challenge fandoms.
Yeah.
That the best thing to do is to challenge these people,
So
and he
just-
did that, and I loved him for it.
So to my point, I think because we're able to interpret it this way, it just goes to show how not cohesive these films are. Yeah. And I think that because there's not a cohesive thought process, it's hard for fans to get on the same page because we wound up liking different things. Like, there's so much in The Last Jedi that I craved. The way they interacted with just the normal people, I was enthralled. Broom Boy is everything to me. I know he's very divisive. Not everybody likes him, but to me, Broom Boy is what Star Wars fandom is about. And so when we get the explosions, I don't remember what planet we're on when they decide to blow up. What planet did they blow up in this movie?
I forget the name of it. Yeah.
The planet they blew up. Before that, we see like the stormtroopers going on raids and the Knights of Ren are in town, and we get nothing of the people. How are the people there affected, and what are they doing to try to protect themselves? It's like these little intricate moments that create community that really like leaped out of Last Jedi for me that are completely missing here.
It wasn't in there as much as the Rise of Skywalker, but on that planet, I did feel a little bit of like World War II. I felt like a very Nazi kind of presence on that planet when we're kind of running around and trying to hide from this regime that's trying to take over. And so I do see a little bit of those themes, but I will be the first one to admit that connectivity was not quite there with this new trilogy. Having said that, I think that you can be a fan of The Last Jedi, and you can be a fan of this movie.
Agree.
I am.
Yep.
I feel
think
like
they're
I'm the
both
only
great.
person who is. Where it's like,
Pleasure to meet you.
oh, hi. Well, they just say that it's like whoever hated The Last Jedi is going to love this movie. And I'm like, no, that's not entirely true either. But I do love them for very, very different and distinct reasons. I loved that The Last Jedi was risk-taking and it just challenged the audiences and spun it on its head a little bit. And yeah, it's like people going, but none of this made sense and the plot is completely flawed. And I'm like, you're right. But I had the best time watching it.
That's the coda right there, Maude.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some flaws to this entire latest trilogy, but I still enjoyed it. I love being a Star Wars fan. I love Star Wars. I mean, even though I don't like the prequels, I still love Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way, but at least in the prequels I can find moments that I like. Let's
Exactly.
all take a moment out of
Any in
this
Attack of the
movie.
Clones, though? Any?
I love Yoda lighting up that lightsaber.
Like, come on.
This
I hate sand.
last movie.
Of course.
What's a moment that you saw? Like for me, I love the celebration. I love Chewie getting a medal. I thought that was so great that Maz gave it to him. And when we pan out of that celebration shot, we see our big three celebrating. Then we also see Chewie, R2D2, and C-3PO all having their nice little quiet moment to themselves. That meant a lot more than I thought it would.
Bespin.
And then closing up, seeing Bespin, seeing Endor, having some justice for Ewoks out there, and then having
that's
that
his
final
original.
shot be the two sons. As soon as we went to Tatooine,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, JJ, please close out with two sons. Got the two sons, got Rey and BB-8 the way that I thought it should be. Let's quickly give a moment that we can really take from this movie, good or bad.
I'll do good since I've been doing bad the whole time. Rey calling Leia master broke me. I was ill-prepared. Even though I don't necessarily see her as a Jedi, the little lady, like, Luminar Undali is my favorite Jedi, and like, little lady, like, Jedi master, holy cow, amazing. The lightspeed jumping was incredible. More of that is inventive. It takes something we're familiar with and pushes its boundaries. It was dangerous and exciting. And then, because I thought it was such a nice character touch, when Poe and Finn come back with his ship, and Rey's like, what have you done to my ship? And I'm like, it's her ship now. And like, the baton's fully been passed.
droid? That was a fun interaction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that whole, all of that energy, seeing those guys together and making it more of a team effort is really, those are the parts of the movie that worked best for me.
Scott, your moment.
My mom, well, of course, at the very end of the film when she says, my name is Skywalker, and you see her with the two sons. I mean, I felt satisfied. I felt very emotional with that moment. But my favorite scene in the film was actually the lightsaber battle between Rey and Ben over the destroyed Death Star.
That was beautiful.
Okay, and the reason I loved that scene was because it threw back to what I thought was one of the better moments of the prequel trilogy, was when Obi-Wan and Anakin were fighting over the lava.
Yeah.
So you have this lightsaber battle over crashing waves over this destroyed Death Star, and they're really going at it. All the elements that doesn't matter, they're just going at it, fighting each other. And it reminded me of that lightsaber battle over the crashing lava flows that Anakin and Ben Kenobi were fighting over in Revenge of the Sith.
It's an interesting yin and yang of natural elements, really,
But there's a lot of yin and yang. There are a lot of throwback moments to the best moments of the original trilogy and also the prequel trilogy, because there were a few, like you point out, Mark. And I love that this movie brings it all to a close.
I mean, my tweet when I walked out of the cinema was saying within the first 20 minutes I realized that this was the best movie of the trilogy, which is why I got so much hate online.
I said the same thing.
But it's this thing where I realized that quickly that we are on that desert planet. It feels like an Indiana Jones kind of adventure happening at the moment. Then you've got this new creature and she's healing it, and I was just so inundated with all of this great stuff that, and then like Chewie getting kidnapped, taken again, and then that fight. So that for me, that first chunk of the film, I was just like, buckle up. I was like, yes. I was so in. So that for me was just like, we're on a path of something.
And
really
something
cool.
I'm excited about on my next rewatch is trying to hear how many Jedi voices I can pick out in there, because when the
Ahsoka is supposed to be in there.
saw Freddie Prinze Jr., Ashley Eckstein in the credits, and it's like, oh, there's a lot of Jedi.
Yeah.
Second time I saw, I definitely heard Mace. I heard Hayden. I heard it was really cool. Where does this movie rank in your favorite Star Wars films of all time? What is your favorite Star Wars film, and what does that do to the Rise of Skywalker? Where are we on the ladder? Maude, start with you.
Favorite Star Wars movie of all time is not the best Star Wars movie of all time, I will have you know. For me, it was Return of the Jedi, because it was the first movie that I saw in cinemas when they digitally remastered it. And that for me, seeing it on the big screen and convincing friends that had never seen any Star Wars ever to watch it with me was like my moment.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just going to go ahead and do that again.
So it's like it's my favorite Star Wars film, not the best. In this case, if we are going to use it in the trilogy umbrella, which is not a trilogy, it's just 3 movies that happen to run alongside each other and be named 7, 8, and 9. It is my favorite of those 3.
Okay.
But then it goes Last Jedi and then Force Awakens, because I thought that was just a boring movie.
Joelle.
Yeah, I think my favorite Star Wars movie is the best Star Wars movie, just Empire Strikes Back. As far as everything, lighting, editing, shooting, it's beautiful. Where does this one rank? I think if I had to choose right now, I'd say Empire Strikes Back, Rogue One, Last Jedi, and then this movie.
Okay.
There's so much to like, but I think we got off track of what it means to be a Jedi and a Sith, which is really important as you're wrapping up of this franchise. It's hard to hold it above those, but from a filmmaking perspective, if we're looking at just as a film, it's a solidly made film. As we're looking at a Star Wars film, for me, it's got a lot of caveats.
Scott?
Okay, I'm so glad you asked this question, Mark Ellis. And
This
by the
is
way,
why I'm here.
High five to you on Return of the Jedi. That's such a beautiful moment that you described. And high five to you on The Empire Strikes Back, which is not only the greatest Star Wars movie of them all, but it is one of the greatest movies ever made, period. It is. I say The Empire Strikes Back is the Citizen Kane of Star Wars movies. I haven't said that in a while,
Got a good
so just go
spoiler
with me.
to Citizen Kane.
So in terms of I watch The Empire Strikes Back all the time, especially now that I have Disney Plus. I watch it all the time. It's on in the background while I'm doing other things. It's like having a best buddy in the room. And it's just a great movie, period. One of the greatest movies ever made. In terms of the rankings, obviously The Empire Strikes Back is first. Then this movie that is called Star Wars, which is now known as A New Hope. My third favorite is Rogue One. I freaking love the hell out of Rogue One. Every time I watch that movie, I can't wait to watch A New Hope. And they snap together like Lego. Number 4 on my list is The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I'm a Jedi boy through and through. So I love seeing a movie where we win at the end. And we didn't have to blow up a planet. We lost a couple pilots and an Ewok. We'll get over it. And then with this movie, I think this is really on a par with Force Awakens for me. So I put all 3 in this new trilogy above the 3 prequels. And then where they rank, I'm still kind of letting that settle in my head. But Rise of Skywalker, I thought it was a great ride. I had so much fun with it, and it brought back all the Star Wars feels that has been instilled in me by my incredible family since the day I walked on this planet, and I was thankful for a nice closing saga that maybe it gave me a lot of questions, maybe more questions than answered, but it also it gave me the emotional closure that I wanted from these 9 movies, and now I feel like I graduated, and I guess I got to get a job. I'm not sure where we go
No,
from
Mark,
here,
no.
but I know where we go, and that is on a little break, because this is the last after show of 2019. We'll be back in 2020 with a whole lot more in store for you. So go ahead, subscribe to the Rotten Tomatoes YouTube channel right now. Hit that bell to give you an alert every time we have a new after show. And keep checking that Tomatometer at RottenTomatoes.com. Like I said, as of this taping, we have 58% for The Rise of Skywalker. The experts who study the Tomatometer say that it could get to fresh, but it's not going to deviate that much from where it is now with 249 reviews currently. So
I'm so interested in the audience score.
keep an eye on that.
Say that.
Yeah.
We are going to get into all of that as the weeks progress. For all the Rise of Skywalker updates you can handle, go to RottenTomatoes.com. I want to thank all my panelists who joined me this year on the after show, and especially my panelists who showed up to talk Star Wars with me in front of a very forgiving audience out there, Scott Mantz, Joelle Monique, and Maude Garrett. For the whole team here, our incredible crew, everyone, we hope you have a great holiday season and safely enjoy the Rise of Skywalker and hanging out wherever you may be in the galaxy with you and yours. I'm Mark Ellis, and we'll see you next year.